Okay, the final draft of ISO 9001 2015 is due out later this year, and many are still waiting with bated breath to see what's in it, although really at this point we got a pretty good idea of what's in it. It's probably not going to be much change, but regardless of what changes there are between, let's say, the existing 2008 version and the 2015 version, it is pretty safe to say that much of what goes into ISO 9001 or any quality management system for that matter can be aided with some automation. By automation we mean software. Now, software is not necessary per se. I mean, certainly there's many QMS systems out there that operate just fine with paper and pencil or an Excel spreadsheet, but there are some real advantages to be gained using software that helps us integrate all of the various aspects of a QMS, regardless of whether, like I said, it's ISO 9001 or something else.
Anything else, yeah.
I'll say so. We have Tim Lozier, Director of Product Strategy for Verse Solutions. He's joining us via Skype to describe some of those advantages. Hi, Tim.
Hey guys, how are you?
All right. Okay, so much of, as I said, much of what ISO 9001 or any QMS is about is really documentation. When you get down to it, you say what you do, and then you make sure everyone in your company does what you say, right? So how does automation help you accomplish this?
Sure. Well, what I think has really happened with the new 2015 standard is pretty interesting, because they've revamped a lot of what they've originally said with the requirements, and they've taken a more company-wide approach to quality. And what's been valuable there is that it's no one person necessarily is owning quality. It's a company-wide effort. And so when you start to look at that from that perspective, what you start to see is that, well, okay, if we all are responsible for quality, how are we going to collaborate? How are we going to enroll everybody within that? And especially when you start with the do what you say aspect of it, what you're looking at is how can we make sure that the documentation, the processes, the procedures that we're all working within the framework are consumable to everybody within the organization. And so when you start to look at it, you need a centralized system. You need some place where everybody can collaborate. And having it centralized isn't necessarily the only thing. It's how do you effectively manage the workflow, the versioning? How do you manage the changes to the documentation at a very at a level when you have multiple different parties that would be interested? The second part of it is if you're saying what you do, you want to make sure that not only are everybody enrolled from a leadership perspective, but you're training them properly. You're making sure that when a document or a process is released, you're able to touch those people immediately in real time and get them to consume the new documentation and become knowledgeable, enrolled. It's really about a mindset that everybody should be collaborating and focusing on the quality initiative. And really, having automation to allow you to be the vehicle for which you deliver the centralized information, it really rounds out the whole story of quality that we're trying to achieve. So we're starting to see more automation being built in. And if you kind of read through the initial parts of the standard, there's a lot of the requirements, a lot of the frameworks built with technology as a consideration. There's a recognition there that they realize that technology is here. It's something that people may or may not use, but they're at least building it into the standards so that you can kind of have that broad-based approach.
And can technology help you more, let's say, concretely see how the various elements of ISO 9001 tie your company together? I mean, the connection, I don't know, between, let's say, risk management and improvement. I mean, is the technology make that more visible?
Well, I think what you're looking for and what you're starting to see is the concept of visibility and control. And when you look at it from a company-wide perspective, there's a lot of pieces involved, and there's a lot of data that gets consumed. We consume a lot of data in our professional lives. So whether you're looking at documentation, quality events, actions that you need to take, you want to make sure that you have a seamless trace from event detection to event correction and beyond. And so what I think automation's allowing you to do is have that unbroken chain. So you may have an adverse event that happens. You want to be able to take that information and relate it to an investigation, to inherit it to a corrective action, to inherit it to management of change. So there's a real push for having that level of visibility. Now, what's really interesting is that in the 2015 standard, they've really taken a risk management approach, which is new, and I think it's a bold, and I think it's a very smart way to look at how you approach quality management. In many cases, when you're talking about risk, you're talking about two different things. You're looking at how you can identify and control the risks that are out there in a proactive manner, but you're also looking at how you can take the risk methodologies and really filter and categorize events by their risk. So now what you're doing is you're not just taking adverse events, you're not just routing them through their paces, you're actually putting a level of risk to say, what is the risk in this organization for that particular event? And I'm going to focus on that first before I start going into anything else. The last part of that, and really kind of the most interesting part, in my opinion, is that, when you look at it from a company-wide perspective, not everybody will speak quality. Not everybody will speak in terms of corrective actions and deviations, but everybody speaks risk. Everybody understands risk. It's systematic, it's objective, it's repeatable. So I really like the direction that ISO is headed with this in terms of leveraging the concepts of risk to really help you create a greater visibility, a greater understanding of what quality truly means to an organization.
Tim, related question for you here. Aside from helping you document your QMS, how do software solutions help you use all the elements of your QMS to improve and enhance your company's performance?
Sure. Well, like I said, there's a lot of data that comes through on any effort, whether it's quality or health and safety, whatever it may be. There's a lot of data that gets in there. And without a way to make sense of that data, without a centralized place to house that data and then make better decisions, you really start to get into a pickle, if you will, with the control of it all. So when you start to look at improvement activities, when you start to look at the ways that we can take a broad-based approach to the risks and the compliance activities, having reporting, having a way to have a central place for all your data and then do reporting on it becomes really key. And being able to do that in a real-time fashion, to be able to do that in a fashion that allows you to make quick decisions, make thoughtful decisions is critically important. But then when you start to think about, okay, well, we make our decision, what happens next? You really want to think about how you're managing change. And when we look at this and we say, okay, well, quality itself is not siloed to one particular area. It's pervasive across all operational areas. When you start managing change, you want to factor in design, production, inspections, what have you. And so having a workflow system, having a system that inherits the data and is able to translate that to a true management of change process becomes incredibly valuable when you start looking at technology and quality management systems.
Hey Tim, real quick. A lot of people, as I mentioned, a lot of people still use, let's say, Excel spreadsheets to handle their QMS needs. Sure. Part of the reason for that, I think, is either cost or maybe the complexity in setting up a system, or maybe both. And I'm thinking mostly smaller companies. How would you address that?
Well, it's becoming a trend, or it's really there's a certain existing common thought that all systems out there, all quality management systems out there are enterprise systems, and they're either unaffordable or they're inflexible. And so what ends up happening is people start saying, well, I either have to spend a lot to get what I want, or I have to settle for an inflexible system that's going to not necessarily meet my unique needs. And let's face it, everybody's company has a unique need. While you have this ISO framework, which is fantastic, each company is going to have their own unique processes and unique needs. And so what we're seeing in the industry in general with technology is that with the advent of cloud computing and the advent of software as a service, you start seeing the concept of software becoming more accessible to different levels of companies that are out there. So smaller companies now can take advantage of cloud-based solutions. They can take advantage of SaaS solutions to really allow them to achieve the same thing that the enterprise systems have been able to achieve at a fraction of the cost. So cost really has become less of an issue in terms of what technology can offer. The second part is really around, I just wanted to follow up. The second part was around the flexibility. And so, you look at that and you say, okay, well, how do I create something that's more flexible? And what you're really looking for is systems that are able to configure to your unique needs. So you're able to make changes without having to go through extensive programming or extensive methodologies to really make the system your own. So having cost-effective solutions that are flexible, it's incredibly achievable now in today's technology markets.
Okay, we're going to hear more about that on Tuesday at a webinar that Quality Digest is hosting, along with Tim Lozier here, Director of Product Strategy at Verse. ISO 9001 2015 compliance, how automation can help. So if you're interested in that topic, go ahead and sign up for it. If you go to Tim's article, which is below the player page, and there's a link on that article that you can click, and that'll let you sign up for that webinar. So Tim Lozier, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks, guys. It's been fun.
Okay, see you.
Thanks, Tim. See you on Tuesday. Yeah, good. Looking forward to that webinar.
Yep.
Going to be a good one. Definitely. All right.